Today's tutorial is going to be about this new type of dynamic page that you can add to Wix sites that you see behind me. One small caveat before you get started is you may notice that I am currently inside of a Wix Studio website, and that is because this feature is currently only available inside of Wix Studio. Hopefully it will come to Wix Classic someday, but even if not, you could implement something very similar to what you're seeing here using the different tools that you would use to build a custom form in Wix. I'll also explain towards the end why might that still be like the better approach to take in general. But before we do that, let me first show you the basics of how to create this new type of page and what this page essentially does. In order to implement this new type of dynamic page, you are of course going to need to have a CMS collection, which is what powers dynamic pages. If you don't know what dynamic pages are at all, this might be a good point to pause the video and watch some of my other tutorials that explain the fundamentals of dynamic pages. In order to create a CMS collection, you can go right over here to the side where it says CMS and go ahead here to your collections and create a new collection. I have already created one collection over here, and it's just kind of a basic collection with different movies and the year they were created, genre, etc., etc. So it's just really some mock data. And in order to create this new type of dynamic page, we're going to go to these three dots right over here, click that, and then go over here to Add Dynamic Page. Once the modal opens, then you'll notice here that we have the three original types of dynamic pages that we've always had. So we have the list page, which is essentially a list of the items in the collection, an item page, which is a single template page for each individual item, and a blank page, which is essentially like an item page, just not with any elements on it that Wix pre-populates. So that's what we've always had out of the box for as long as I can remember. And now we also have this new option over here, which is Manage Content. So these three options are all for display content, while this one is for manage content. And what essentially this page is going to do is to give users the ability to change, update, add new content to this dynamic collection. In order to add it, we're just going to click on that Manage Item page and then click over here to Add to Site. Once we get this little pop-up here, I'll explain what this is trying to say in a moment. We can just go ahead and click Create Page. One thing I want to note is that some of the other entry points into creating dynamic pages currently don't have this Manage Page option. So try and follow the exact steps that I did to make sure that you can see it. Because some of the other places that you can create dynamic pages from, I noticed that this option is not yet there. So you'll see here now that we've added a new Movies Manage item to our dynamic pages. And this is what the page looks like. Let's take a little bit of a tour. So first we have this section up here on top where you can select a collection item. And then we have a bunch of inputs over here where the user can then view and edit the different properties of that item, the different fields of that item. So these are essentially correlated to the fields that I have in the collection. So I have a title field, I have a year field, cover image, genre, etc. And over here on the bottom, we have a few buttons. A save button to save our updates, undo changes to revert, and we have a kind of garbage button over here in order to delete a specific item. Previous and next will go between the different dynamic items. So let's just try this out. I'm going to head over here into preview mode, just like that. And so what we have over here, it is showing me the inception option to begin with, because that's kind of the dynamic page I'm on. And this drop down here also works. So this might be something that could be a little confusing to users, because it's, at least when I say users, I mean to yourself when you're editing the site, because this bar up here, this won't be on our live site. This is something that's only inside of preview mode, whereas this select collection item is what users will actually see. So if I select here Pulp Fiction, I see here and click go, then I see here that it switched to Pulp Fiction over here, but here we're still technically kind of on the Inception version of the page. So it might be a little confusing when you're in preview mode, but on the live site, that confusion should be completely gone. And then here we see the title, year, etc. So let's try and just change the title here. So instead of Pulp Fiction, I'll just write here, let's say Pulp Fiction 2, and change the year to 1998. Let's say it came out a few years later. So if I'm not happy with those changes, then I can just click here, undo changes, and you'll see it reverted back to what it was before. If I don't want to do that, then I can go ahead and save my changes. And if you go down over here, then you'll see that there's like a notice here, your content has been submitted, and that indicates that we've made the change successfully. So if I switch now between several items, let's say I switch to The Dark Knight, and then I switch back to Pulp Fiction, you can see here already it says Pulp Fiction 2 because we've updated the items in the collection. And if we were to go to our data collection now inside the CMS, then we'd see that the data itself has actually been changed by the end user. What we could also do is we can go ahead and hit this trash button, as I said, and that will completely delete the item from the collection. So this item technically doesn't exist anymore. And if we go over here to, let's say, Inception, and we check the drop down again, then we'll see here that our Pulp Fiction item is completely gone. One thing you may be wondering is, right after you created this page, great, how do I now get my users to these pages? So in order to understand that, let's take a look and see how the URL is built for each one of these dynamic pages. So if we go over here to our manage item for movies inside of dynamic pages, and we go over here to the three dots, and we go over here to SEO, then we can see the URL structure for these dynamic manage pages, manage item pages, and you can see here that it's movies/edit/title. So first of all, this is completely dynamic. You can change this however you want. It doesn't have to be this specific URL, but this is out of the box how it's going to work. Now, the question is, how can we get users to go to these edit pages? So I'm going to propose two different ways. Again, I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible because I'm assuming that if you're using this page to begin with, then you're probably not so tech or code savvy. So one way would be to create a dynamic list page. So I'm going to go over here to our dynamic pages again for this collection. So the movies collection again, and the same entry point that we took before. So add dynamic page, and this time I'm going to add in a list page. So let me go ahead and add that to site. And out of the box, these list pages, they connect to item pages. They don't connect to the different manage item pages. But that's something that we can easily change. So if we go here, for example, to this Start Now button, at the moment, it's actually not linked to anything because we haven't created any item pages yet. But if you had created an item page before, it would probably already be connected. What we can do here is go to, let's say, this Start Now button, click over here to connect to CMS, and then go over here and select Click Action Connects To, and we can select here the Movies Manage item, okay, just like that. And now when we click on any one of these buttons, it will go to the respective edit page for that dynamic page. So let me show you what that might look like. Let's just add this list page to our menu. So let's go here to Site Pages, and I'm going to add in this list page. I'm going to go and add it to menu. And let's publish our site so we can check this all out on the live site. So here I am on the live site on the dynamic list page that we created. And let's see what happens now when I click on one of these Start Now buttons. So first of all, you'll notice here in the URL that we successfully navigated to the Manage Item page, so Movies Edit/Inception for the one that we clicked. But it's requesting for us to sign up in order to access this page. If you think about it, that makes a lot of sense because it's very likely that you would not want every single user on the internet, anonymous user, to be able to access these edit pages because, as we saw before, they are quite powerful. You can save from them, you can delete from them, etc. So we'll talk a little bit about permissions and access in a moment, because there's really a two-layered approach in terms of how to deal with who can do what on the page and who can access the page. But for now, I want to just show you one more approach that you can take in order to allow people to navigate to these edit pages, and that is through the item page of the corresponding item itself. Here back in the editor, let's go ahead and add a dynamic item page. So the very classic dynamic page that you should be familiar with for this movies collection. So I'm going to go right over here to pages, and I can go over here and I can add dynamic page. So this is just another entry point for adding dynamic pages. And I'm going to select this time the item page. And I'm going to go ahead and add that to site. And once these pages are added in, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change our list page so that when we click on a button on the list page, it will navigate to our item pages instead. So let's go back here to our list page. And I'm going to change this Start Now button so that it navigates to our new dynamic item page. So let me just go ahead and select that. And here, instead of connecting it to Movies Manage Item, I'm going to connect it here to Movies Item. So this will go to the actual dynamic page instead of the edit page. Now, on our dynamic pages themselves, so if we go here to Movies Item, then we're going to add in a button. So let me go over here, and I'm going to add in a button. So for example, let's say View More. And I'm going to add that in. I'm not focusing a lot on design right now, so I'm just kind of plopping it there in the middle. And we could change this to, let's say something like Edit instead of View More. And this button we can then link, okay, so connect over here to CMS. And then over here for Click Action Connects To, we can select the Movies Manage Item page. And it will automatically go to the corresponding Manage Item page for this item that we're on. So let me go ahead and publish this change just to show you what it looks like. And then after we see that, we're going to talk a little bit more about the whole topic of permissions and access for the pages. Here I am back on the live site, and I'm on the movies list page, the dynamic list page, and I click Start Now. And now this goes to our dynamic item page. And here we have our edit button, which I can then click, which will go to the edit page, which is again protected and for members only. So let's talk a little bit now about why it is protected. So the first level of protection that exists here on the page is the page permissions. So if we go back over here to the editor and I open up, I'm here on the dynamic manage item page, and I open up over here the settings for the page, so right over here, and we go to the permissions section. You'll notice here that out of the box, Wix created this page as members only. And we can change the permissions on this page just like we can any other page on Wix. There's nothing really special here. So you really need to think about who should gain access to this page to begin with. Okay, so again, there's going to be another level of access and permissions that we're going to talk about in a moment. But first of all, we should try and limit the access to this page to people who generally we think will need to access this page. So if it's members only, then members only. We could even make it even more specific to specific members. But let's see what happens if I open it up to everyone. So I'm going to initially allow everyone to access this page, and I'm going to go ahead and hit publish. So now if we go back to our live site, and let's go back over here to the dynamic item page, and I'm going to hit edit now. And we can see here that now I did manage to access the manage item page. Okay, so I managed to access it over here. But I'm currently not logged into the website at all. I'm just an anonymous rando from the internet who's here visiting this page. So I can go ahead and select an item, let's say The Dark Knight, and I can go ahead and try and add here, let's say Inception 2, 2012, and then let me try and hit save over here. And you'll see here that it says that an error occurred. Okay, let me try, for example, now to delete this page. Again, error occurred. Okay, so I can view the data on this page, but I can't seem to save my changes and undo change or delete and whatnot. So that has to do with the fact that even though I have access to this specific page on Wix, I don't have permissions in the data collection to make changes to the data collection. So now let's hop over and take a look at our collection itself and understand how to manage the access on the collection level. Here I am back inside the editor, and I've already opened up the CMS collection for the movies. If we go over here to More Actions, and then we see here there's Permissions and Privacy, here is where we can edit those permissions that I was talking about at the collection level. And we even see here this warning up here related to updating content, because we have elements on the Movies Manage Item page are set to update content, but site visitors don't have permission to update items. Okay, so that's the issue here. And you can see here that the permissions are set to the default show content, which means any visitor to the site can see the content, but they can't edit the content. So what we could do is a few things. So we can change this, for example, to collect content. And then we can say who can add content to this collection, anyone, or members only, everyone or members only. And then people would be able to fill out those forms and actually make edits. For example, if we set this to who can add content to this collection, everyone. So everyone would be able to add to this collection, but not necessarily update this collection. Okay, so really in order to facilitate the kind of page that we just added to the site, which is the Manage Items page, we would actually need to be a little more nuanced and select the advanced option here. This allows us to get down to a much more granular level and really decide who can do every one of these CRUD operations. CRUD stands for Create, Read, Update, Delete, here called View, Add, Update, Delete, on our database or our collection. So for this data collection, let's say we would want everybody to be able to view. So if we select everyone, then it automatically fills in all the ones we have here. In terms of add, this depends on what you want. So it could be you want to let everybody add stuff to your collection. It could be you only want to let people update and not add. So the admins add and you update. But let's say we want to let everybody add to this collection over here. And in terms of update, we only want to allow, for example, the item's creator to update. So if somebody created the item, then they would be able to update it. Alternatively, we could also set it to everyone can update. And then we have kind of like a Wikipedia style data collection, essentially, where everybody on the internet is just updating and changing everything. So it's unlikely you'd want to do that. But I'm actually going to set it to that just for demonstration purposes. And the same goes for delete. I'm just going to do like a very, very open form permissions here, just so we can really, as an anonymous visitor on the internet, pretty much do everything that we want to do with the collection. But again, you probably want to do something more nuanced. I'll just note here that if you want it to be items creator, then you're going to need to require them to be a member. Okay, so items creator is kind of like a level over member. So you can't have items creator for anonymous visitors because you wouldn't know who the creators were. So now that we've updated our permissions, I'm going to go ahead and hit save. Again, the permissions that I put just now, they're extremely, extremely open. Like it's really, there's very, very, very little chance that you'll actually want such permissive permissions on your own site, but that's just for demonstration purposes. So now if I go back to the live site over here and I just give this page a refresh. So again, I am a completely anonymous person on the internet. But now if I put here, let's say Inception 2, and I go ahead and I hit save, then you'll see here that the content has been submitted because I've changed the permissions on the collection. So we really have a two-level permissions. We have access to page and access to content. The last thing that I want to show you how to do is to change up this page a little bit to allow people to add new items to the collection. In order to understand how to add new items to the collection from this page, we'll need to kind of dive down a little bit and understand what's happening here behind the scenes. So essentially what Wix has done is we've built in a page where each of these inputs is connected to a dynamic data set, okay, which is connected to the movies manage item. And in the dataset settings, it's set over here to read and write. Okay, just like that. So at the moment, Wix doesn't really give us an option here to create a new. There's no button here for create new item. But what we can do here is we can go ahead and add in a new button. Okay, so let's add in this obnoxious yellow button right over here. I'll add it towards over here, towards the top of the page. And what we'll do is we'll change this to say, for example, create new. And then we will go over here and we'll connect this to our CMS. And the click action, okay, so this panel will open up here on the right side. And for the click action, first we'll connect it to our data set, which is the movies manage item, the one that Wix created out of the box. And then we'll go over here to the click action connects to. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a new item. Okay, just like that. And now if we go ahead and we publish this, when a user clicks on create new, it'll create a new blank item in the database that a person can then edit and save. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that out. So we go over here to the inception page. And I'm going to go and click create new. And you can see here that it kind of cleared all the inputs that we have over here. So now that that's all cleared out, I can go ahead and just say a new movie. So let's say, did we have Avatar there already? I don't remember. Let's say Star Wars, 1994. That's not true, but okay. Genre is awesome, and description is great movie. And then we can go ahead here and hit save. And you'll notice that I didn't upload a cover image, so you might want to implement certain validations or required fields in terms of this form if you're allowing people to add in new items. But there we go. So I've submitted a new item, and then hopefully over here, if, for example, I refresh the page, then the Star Wars movie should be included over here in the items. Okay, just like that. Okay, so that's how to add the option for people to also create new items within this page. You might not want to do it here directly. You might want to do it somewhere else, but that's just something that's not on this page that I thought might be useful for you. Finally, I'll end off with some thoughts about this new dynamic manage item page. So one thing that I pointed out before, and you probably noticed, is that essentially what this does is it creates an item page, a manage item page for each item in the collection. So what it does is it adds X amount of new pages to your website based on the amount of items in the collection, each with its own distinct URL. And if you have seen my video about don't create dynamic pages on your site before watching this video, that's what the tutorial is called. That is a big focus of that tutorial, which is, do you actually need a dynamic page for something? And this scenario that we're talking about here, like an edit items page for a data collection, is actually one of the examples that I present as a case that you really don't actually need dynamic pages for. Because you don't need a distinct URL on your website for every single edit page. There's no sort of SEO benefit to having each one of these pages being indexed on Google or anything like that, and it just kind of creates a little bit of bloat. I think that that said, considering the added ease of use for people who might not be so technical, this is not a terrible thing. Okay, so it's actually, it's not a, like, I don't want to, okay, I don't want to seem so pessimistic. It's pretty cool. Okay, I don't think that by adding these pages to your site, you are, ruining your site, or I don't think there's any really kind of detriment to it. You can always go into the SEO settings for these pages and set them to no index. For all I know, that might even be kind of what Wix does here out of the box. You'd have to go to the SEO settings in the dashboard and figure it out there. But I think that if you do have the capability, you probably will want to do something like this just on a regular page of your site and not use these manage item pages in order to minimize the bloat, essentially, and gain a little more control over the process and what's happening. But if you are not confident doing that, then I think that this is an awesome alternative. I think it's a really new, cool addition to dynamic pages, and it will help a lot of people. So that's all for today. I hope you found this tutorial informative. Let me know in the comments if you think I missed anything out, if you have any questions about this, any follow-up tutorials you'd like to see. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up just so I know. And I hope to see you next time. And the way to make sure that that happens is to just go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you there.